Let's dive into the world of tabletop gaming and painting with the Tippy cast. From rolling dice to mastering brushstrokes, we're here to fuel your passion. Join us for insights, inspiration, and endless creativity. I'm Chris.
And I'm Daz. So, Chris, what's on the table?
I'm still working on my crowd minis. Yesterday I wasn't at D&D, so I ended up sitting down to do a little bit of painting. So the the woman holding the banner from the Half Tilt Kickstarter, I've done her in like the Diamond Oasis aquamarine that I use as their stable color.
Nice.
And the banner she's holding has a big hashtag on it with catfolk or riot. So I'm back on my BS with that. I sent a picture of it to Louis yesterday. He was like, "You need to put that in the half tilt group." So I was like, "Yeah, it'll go there." And
For those of you who don't
the
know, it's basically during Rumbleslam's infancy, Chris has always been banging on to them about having like some sort of like Rostani cat folk team. And he started up a trend every time they released a miniature or a team box that wasn't cat folk. He would always comment hashtag cat folk or riot.
well, it came from the Kickstarter for um the desert halfling Kickstarter,
Yeah.
where it introduced the um, pyramid pile drivers, and then I started the catfolk or riot hashtag, and I was just constant with that.
He was going to go with Meow too, but that was a little bit too close to the bone on that one.
But and very kindly, just before they released the retail, they sent us the 1001 fights, and so that was very nice of them. So I'm back on it to get some more catfolk, starting that up. Uh, and the what else have I been working on? Working on the Minotaur with the flags.
Nice.
Yeah, that's quite a nice one. And one of my other cheerleaders I'm doing as a wood elf. So she's for the forest soul.
Nice.
And the color scheme I'm going for is like the Miami Dolphins, where it's the green with
That'll look nice.
orange like complementary color.
Mm.
And yeah, it looks pretty cool. I'm looking forward to getting them done because I did the dark elf for the Gamora, so she was in like your purples, black, and I kind of like had silver as an accent color on the pom poms,
Mm.
and
It's a very lovely skin tone. You sent me the picture of this a while ago. It's a very lovely skin tone.
thank you.
A
It's
very
the one I use for vampires.
mm,
Just it works really nice for dark elves because I like my dark elves to be like really pale
yeah, same.
because they live underground, so the skin's going to be really pale. Um, what about yourself?
Well, I'm sort of nearly very at the nearly end of my half tilt minis. Playing around with some chipping medium on the shields of two of my guys. To make it look like those shields have been like battle worn. Because I feel that a couple of these sort of like craggy bottom goat riders, they seem the type of people where they'll use the same gear for a joust as they would in battle. I don't feel they're the
Mm-hmm.
kind of people that would differentiate the two. So I'm just thought
Yeah.
I like a sort of more battle worn shields. So I'm messing around with paint and some chipping medium. I've got some. So I don't know if anyone remembers. I backed a Kickstarter a while ago, and I did mention it on the Playing with Yourself episode.
Excellent title.
It was about the Mr. Torg's Badass Arena of Badassery. The Borderlands sort of arena sort of game. And I'm hoping to paint them very much in the same art style as the video game. So almost
Mhm.
like, as Chris mentioned, it's more like a cheat cell shading rather than proper cell shading. So I've got a couple of those primed up to just sort of have a quick bash at it, see how easy or difficult it would be, see if it's sustainable to do all of the miniatures.
Mm.
Um, and see how that goes, and I will report back on that at a later date. What
Nice.
else? What else? Oh,
I've seen some really cool ones for The Walking Dead
mm,
where people have I say people, I've seen one person do it, where they've kind of grayscaled it and they've done the comic art
mm.
sketching effect on it for the details.
I've seen a
Very
couple of
similar to
those.
the Borderlands stuff, and it looks really nice.
Yeah, so I thought I'd give that a go. Push myself out of my painting comfort zone a little bit. Um, just sort of challenge myself a little bit, really. I've just sort of not so much stuck in my ways, but you know, Chris has seen a lot of the things I paint. I have a style generally. Um, Even my Rumbleslam stuff, which ordinarily is quite a bright and vibrant game, I still use more of like a sort of darker painting style.
Mhm.
Um, and that's my half tilt's gone the same way. Everything I generally paint has that sort of like more darker tones. Um, Looks a bit more grimy, a bit more dirty, a bit more, not so much. I don't want to say the word real, but I just feel more, you know,
It has a bit more of a realism about it.
yeah,
It's like it's kind of grounded in a
mm,
medieval setting.
yeah, very much. So I thought with my Borderlands stuff, I thought that might be a good example, a good time to try out a new technique, try out a new style, just see how it sort of feels, and then go from there. And I am quite looking forward to it. I had a quick game of it solo the other day, and it was very enjoyable. Um, but yeah, that's kind of all I've got going on at the minute. Um, yeah, I've just
I think having different styles for different like miniatures and games and things is really good. Like for me, my Rumble Slam, my half tilt, everything is really bright and punchy
mm,
because the other stuff that I do, like Necromunda and like Warhammer, I don't I paint Escher, so I do get to do a lot of like punchy colors on that, but it still has that like darker tone to it.
mm.
Whereas with like Rumble Slam and the half tilt, I just kind of go really bright, very flary, and nice. Carnival is the same. Like there is some like nice bright colors in that, but again, it kind of has like a tone of like grim to it.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of where I am when I do my Carnival. There is like an element of grimness to it, and I think because they're fighting at night. It's
Hmm.
a lot of the time some of the models, especially the Doctors of the Ospiedale, they're very dark and twisted, and I kind of try to replicate that and reflect that
Hmm.
in because the stories. I mean, for those who haven't read a lot of the lore or any lore for Carnival, it's dark, like
Yeah,
very dark. Like on the surface, everything seems all bright and chipper, but when you actually look into it, it is really dark.
yeah.
Um,
The background fluff for the like in the rule books, fantastic.
mm.
The really good writing in that.
I mean, the main core rulebook for the first rendition of it, I'd say a good three-quarters of that book is just lore and
Yeah, I think the first 100 pages or so is low.
good read.
Gav Thorpe.
Yeah, fantastic read.
He's yeah, Gav Thorpe's a really good writer. He's written a bunch of Warhammer books.
And then the blood on the water just carried that on, and again, it just gets
Hmm.
even darker. And and again, for those of you who've never sort of looked at a Carnival miniature, you'll just see it progressively just getting more and more twisted, darker and darker as the things go on. Like just recently, they have released some night. They're called the Knights of Silence, and a lot of them have their mouths sewed shut. And then you've also got the Unholy Union with the Doctors. Think Human Centipede, but just more arms. There's a giant, there's a giant bat that's just terrifying.
That's really cool.
But then on the lighter side of Carnival, you've got drunk clowns. So where do you stand on that?
Yeah. Speaking of, how is your kit coming along? The fountain.
The fountain kit. A little bit of a hiccup. I can't find the Puntanellas. I've put them somewhere so safe that I no longer can find them. Which is a pain. I have some ideas. But the fountain itself's just got some base colours on at the minute. I'm looking at freehanding a design in the bottom of the fountain. So I'm just kind of trying to get some inspiration. So what I was thinking of doing, I was thinking of like gridding it, like really fine, and then almost like trying to paint a mosaic in. Because in theory, that's what the bottom of a fountain would have in Renaissance Italy at the time. So I'm just kind of looking for a design. I keep every so often just sort of like scrolling through designs. I also need to buy some water effects because I ran out. I did. My dad needed to borrow some for his model train set, and yeah, we just used the rest of that water up on that. So I need to get some more before I do that, and I also need to check if it's watertight. So I need to sort of seal it as well. But yeah, that's
UV resin. UV resin's really good for that because it's quite a viscous thing as it's coming out of the bottle anyway, so it doesn't matter about being particularly watertight. You can kind of get a nice bit of leeway with that.
Yeah,
but if you want to try some, your hand at some freehand, I'd like to open up a challenge to you and any of the listeners. On a model you're painting, try some freehand. Whether it's like an image on the shield or a banner, the bottom of a fountain, like you were just saying there, adding some text or graffiti to a building. Just try your hand at some freehand because it's surprisingly fun. I've been doing it quite a bit recently, and it's not as daunting when you start it as it is when you're thinking about starting it. And I was thinking use a hashtag of Tippy Club Challenge on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll check through, see what people are doing, or you can just post it straight to the Tippy Club Facebook page. I'll see it there as well.
And the winner gets nothing.
The winner gets a nice.
Gets a nice and maybe a crisp high five.
Yeah. I know, like, life getting in the way and stuff. Sometimes you haven't got time to hobby, so it's like, just if you get a chance to try it, it'd be cool to see what people come up with. And if it's all right for people that for us to do so, I could hire them onto the Tippy Club blog. Just kind of get some more stuff on the blog, really, because at the minute it's kind of more just podcasts, and like whenever I upload a video, I haven't done many things on the blog otherwise. It'd just be nice to get a bit more stuff up on there.
I mean, it was thanks to Chris.
That'll be the Tippy Club Challenge hashtag.
Hashtag Tippy Club Challenge. I mean, it was thanks to Chris that I did some tartan on one of my half tilt figures, and did a Stars and Stripes shield in another half tilt shield.
Very cool.
So that was down to one of Chris's videos about shield heraldry. So yeah, I might try and get some freehand on the go as well. So just to be warned,
even using that video for the heraldry, just doing some squares, doesn't even need to be a checkerboard. Just do some quartering. I mean, that counts. That's freehanded. So
And don't be put off. Of me and Chris, Chris is the more better painter. I'm sure there's plenty about you there. Whoever
I've just got more time to do it because single man, no kids. Come home from work and I just sit down and have a bit of a paint. That's all it is.
beer. Although Chris will always admit of many things that he is better at with painting than me, he will always praise me on my colour blending and denim.
That's very good colour blending and denim.
So if anyone wants any tips on painting denim,
I think I've only ever done denim really good once, and that was on Peyote Pete.
yes, when I did it, and I did it on the Senelian. But yeah, that's all I've got. So yeah, thanks for that, Chris, and I'm sure I'll try and get some stuff up there on the hashtag Tippy Club Challenge.
Winner. Before we move into the main topic, have you been watching any of the Warhammer TV YouTube videos?
I'm afraid I don't, but I have heard that they're doing a 3D model of Henry Cavill as a Space Marine. Is that what you're going to talk about?
No.
Okay.
They've enabled comments. I don't know when they've done that.
It's a dangerous
the last
move.
couple of ones I've seen, well, I've had a look in the comments on there. The couple of the videos I've watched, very positive. People are keeping it
PG.
like, keeping it nice. Yeah.
Bots. It's AI.
Because there's not all of the videos they've been putting out recently have been things that I particularly need. But there was one where it was doing blue steel, and like doing it for like power weapons and stuff. I was like, it's always handy to have an idea.
See, I'm very set in
that was pretty cool.
I'm very set in my fantasy ways. I don't ever need to worry about power weapons.
Magical weapons, though.
That is true.
And also, just blue steel in general. It's very good armor colours. I like it. I tend to do my armor with a blue sheen. But and like I'm not too bothered about this new version of Kill Team because the last version of Kill Team I've played once, and I really want to play it more. So I'm not too bothered about getting this new one. But looking at the Vespid Sting Wings, so like a sub faction of Tau or something like that. Really nice looking models. I'm not too bothered about the Imperium guys that are like in the other half of the box. But those Stingwing models look really cool. They're like, obviously Vespid, they're big wasps.
Yeah.
And they did a video where it's the two of the painters over 5 days painting the two kill teams.
Yeah.
And like they both do really nice job on it. But they like the Stingwings in particular, just I thought they were really nice looking models.
While we're on the subject of Games Workshop, though, and nice models, I messaged Chris about this the other day, but I got sent a link by one of my friends who plays Blood Bowl, and he sent me a link to some to the Blood Bowl teams that come out because he's like, "Oh, Daz, you like Khorne?" And I was just sort of like, "I do like Khorne," and he sent me to the link to the new. I like all kind of Khorne. I like Khorne the band. I like Sweet Khorne, Khorne on the Cob, which by the way is just Khorne. And I also
Popcorn.
like all Khorne that is off. Everything should be off the cob. Khorne comes on a cob. Everything else is off the cob. That's another thing. But I also like Khorne. One of my favourite factions when I did play Games Workshop and I had Games Workshop is I always really liked Khorne. Blood for the Blood God, Skulls for the Skull Throne, all that. Down with the False Emperor God, all that lark. And they
it's drawing you back in.
No, and this is what I said to him, and I was like, because Chris got a text from me that says, "I fucked that." I don't know if I might have to, Chris might be able to bleep that out. I effed that.
I might not. I might just keep that in. I'm sure I've sworn on one episode before.
I sent Chris a text saying, "I fucked up," and Chris, obviously, me and him being quite close friends, he's like, "Oh my god, is everything all right?" And I was just like, I looked at some Games Workshop miniatures. and I liked them. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And I was really close to buying like a Blood Bowl team. And then I fell into a Games Workshop rabbit hole. I relapsed. I ended up looking at Warcry. And then and then next thing you know, I'm looking at Death Cause of Krieg. And I don't even like sci-fi stuff. And it's
The Deathcore Krieg mods are really nice. I've got them.
and yeah, I didn't want to. I had to get off the link, and I was finding myself going down a Games Workshop rabbit hole. But I'm okay. I didn't buy anything, but it's just
Just a matter of time.
yeah, like Games Workshop will get you one way or another. They nearly had me with the Norska team that they brought out. They nearly had me with that because who doesn't love a pig with a barrel on it? They very nearly had me. So I think we should move swiftly on from.
Yes. Maybe got 20 minutes. Just talk about what we've got on the table and Games Workshop.
Well, me and Chris haven't spoken properly for a week or so, over a week. So yeah,
I was ill back end of last week, which is why this episode's a week late. So that's fun. Everything just hit at once. It's just a nightmare. But
we're back.
So back into the main topic. So I messaged you last week, week before, whatever it was, Daz, saying I've got an idea for an episode. What would you like to see in a game that isn't really in games? And for me, I love heisting. I love the Payday games, GTA 5 to a lesser extent. I thought the heists weren't that good in that, but you know, it was an interesting take for it. You know, films like Heat, the Ocean's films, just, you know, heisting is just a really cool like idea of like just a topic to kind of latch onto there. I've been watching Money Heist recently as well. Fantastic. Board games have some heisting in it. There's like Burgle Brothers, Bank Attack. Talked about them in some other episodes. But there's nothing that allows you to fulfill that heisting movie fantasy on the tabletop. So like in a miniatures game, like a miniatures system. If I was to do one, you'd be going straight into the heist. You don't bother with the setup. It's kind of, you know, that's just extra steps. You just want to be on the table, straight into it. Whether it's a bank, a museum, whatever it is. Just have a way for randomly generating where the gods will be. So even if you've got to like grid up the play area and like generate where the civs are going to be, the gods will wander around. So you either use like scatter dice or
they have a patrol route, you know,
or a patrol route. Yeah, like a patrol route, kind of like I was kind of thinking like with Burgle Brothers, you do that, like you draw a card out and it'll tell you like a point that they'll be going to. So you'd be putting the dice on there, and the gods will move on their turn to that. So it's kind of like that's a really nice mechanic that it just works. To get to that point, you draw the next card out, they'll go to there. So like they're constantly having to like react to where they're going to be moving, planning your route around that. So I think that'd be cool.
I mean, I'm the same as you. Like, there is a distinct lack of heist in, you know, games as a whole. I mean, there might be some games where it's like, oh, you know, that was sort of, I wouldn't say shoehorn, robbery into the game, but every time you play another, like again, going back to my love of a western, there's been a scenario I played once in the Fistful of Lead, where you effectively rob a bank of sorts, but it is just very much a get to the bank, hold it for X amount of turns, leave, and then like okay, you've just more shoehorned an actual just a heist narrative or a bank robbery narrative into a game, which is
Yeah,
fine. It's thematically
it,
correct.
it's just like a hold the flag down and
Yeah, and
survive.
but having an actual sort of thing, an actual game where you've got to control the crowd, break into the safe, take guards out, plan your escape and things like that. When you play these other games, aren't really taken into account,
Hmm.
or like the heist plan going wrong and having a backup plan. A lot of these sort of aspects of heists aren't covered when they do shoehorn it into other systems. I
Hmm.
mean, again, it's like I've played games of Dungeons and Dragons, and there's been like a heist element. It's always that. It's always like a diet heist, or like heist max, or heist zero, where it's got a flavour of heist, but it's not got any of the meat behind it.
Hmm.
It's realistically you're basically trying to get silver for the price of gold. Sorry, getting gold for the price of silver. My mistake. And saying, "Oh, it's a heist," when in actual fact, what you've done there is a robbery. There is a difference between the two. Not to be, finicky about it, but there is. For me, and I'm
Hmm.
sure with you as well, Chris, heisting is a fully laid out plan. There's a whole, and in films they do like the montage and it's everything. It's a full thing,
Hmm.
and it's not like a spur of the moment thing. And that's what I feel a lot of other game systems when they try to incorporate that sort of level of crime into a game, it does just feel like a glorified robbery rather than a
Hmm.
heist. So it would be interesting to see something like that. Um, I mean, me and you also had a lengthy conversation, and not to give too much away, but me and Chris have been chatting about doing more like a TTRPG sort of heist game, which I think would also be quite nice. Again, there's just nothing really out there. I mean, the nearest thing you get to that, I'd say, is I think there's like a mobster game, mobster
Hmm.
TTRPG game, and obviously people using like any homebrew sort of stuff with Dungeons and Dragons, you can sort of shoehorn it into that. But me and Chris are talking like like modern day, full scale, like Ocean's 11 sort of heisting.
Well, like the idea of heisting does lend itself into other RPG systems, that you were saying with D&D. I reckon that would be quite a fun one to do. Like allowing the heist setup to play out.
Mm.
So you could be planning on like heisting a king's vault, or even like robbing a dragon's hoard. So like, how would you distract the dragon to be able to get in? How are you going to be getting your stuff in there to kind of, as you're leading it around, kind of like booby trap and stuff to make it harder for it to get back to where the hoard is. And that's like some pretty cool elements you can get into there, and there'd be like a lot of quests that you'd have leading up to it. So like it works there. Another system I quite like is the Fallout one,
Mm.
where again, what would you have like the setup being for like the idea of it? So robbing Brotherhood of Steel or Enclave Stronghold for valuable tech, or the Institute even stealing some of their gear. Or if you had a party that were all part of the railroad, then when you're going to heist the Institute, you're not too bothered about getting the tech out. You're
Right,
going after the synths.
to get the synths out.
So the loot is like the loot the heist loot is a rescue mission.
Yeah.
So it just kind of like turns that like the heist idea on its head a little bit. I think that's quite an interesting take for it.
And I think so. And I think, we might be just saying this, but there could very well be a system out there that someone's done. Or again, they could be, if you've got a good enough games master or DM for D&D, the sky is really the limit if you've got a good enough
Mm-hmm.
DM.
Well, it's like with like a murder mystery.
Mm.
If you've got a DM who understands the setup and like the progression of murder mystery, like plays and films and like other games like that, you can do that really easily I say easily. It takes a lot of planning to do it, but like you can get it to play out in tabletop roleplay.
Mm.
But you need to have the DM who's got like the right mind for it to drop those red herrings and kind of like subtly like leave the clues there without drawing like massive attention to them and stuff like that. It's like a real fine art for doing that. And if you had a mind for the heist genre, you'd be able to fit that in there.
What a twist!
What a twist! And like I don't know if you're like go back to the miniatures thing. Obviously, you'd be wanting to go quiet, but I mean, if it goes loud, you'd need like rules for police, like first responders rocking up, and then as the threat increases, heavier units come in,
SWAT teams,
SWAT teams coming in, like the ballistic shields and stuff like that.
snipers, tear gas.
Snipers, yep. Like your special, like your spec ops guys, kind of sneaking in. The thing maybe is like more of a lone wolf character, but like they're hard. Like they're a tough guy, but you can take them out. It's just one guy, but he's like sneaking in while you're distracted by other things. So you've got to kind of like branch off towards them.
I mean,
Hostage rescue guys, trading for assets. Like a lot of these ideas I've just taken straight out of Payday 3. But I mean, like having that threat progression. Like the Walking Dead game's got a threat tracker for how the walkers will react in the event phase.
Yeah.
Having like a mechanic similar to that, so certain things you do increases the threat. If a civilian takes a stray bullet, the threat gets increased a bit more. Maybe it starts the assault straight away. Coppers come in, heavy SWAT units come straight down if someone's like a civilian's being killed. End up where you've got like it's an endless wave. The coppers don't pull back to kind of regroup, reassess. It doesn't give you that breathing room. It's just a solid push. Just things like that, just little tweaks on things that are in games and make it kind of make sense in a heisting situation.
I mean, it would also be really interesting to bring in that stress rule that you mentioned in the Alien RPG. Because obviously, the more you're going to get stressed if you start realizing that you're going to have SWAT breathing down your neck at any minute, or you're going to start making mistakes.
Yeah, like so bring it as the stress get like the threat gets higher, you get a stress dice added into your rolls where maybe you lose your cool, maybe like you're not as good at aiming. Maybe someone will take a failed at like fire like shooting roll. As your stress gets higher, the firing line, if someone's say within an inch of the firing line, they could take a stray shot. That could be a civilian, could be a teammate.
Yeah.
But as you get more stressed, that starts
buffer,
getting wider. it's just things like that, just to kind of it adds that risk in for when you're going loud.
And I think that's what you need to do. And if you're going to sort of do like that, you need to have, you need to have that sort of level of, risk versus reward sort of
Mm-hmm.
type, and it could be one of those situations where when entering the game on a tabletop front, you've got like a certain amount of points as a group, or within your team, um, in sense that you could spend more points on your own personal gear, or you could spend more points on having a better setup. So
Mm-hmm.
like it might make it less likely that you're going to go loud, at the risk that if it does go loud, you're going to might be under equipped.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know, but it's a very interesting concept, and
Take more precision weaponry
mm,
that as you start panicking, the like people won't be in that like that kind of distance where they are. The precision weapon will kind of affect that.
mm,
So as you're taking aim down a thing, it's like a sniper rifle or something like that. You're not going to be getting stressed holding the trigger down too long. In a stray bullet whipping off and hitting someone, it's you've got one pull the trigger on it.
yeah, I think it may be a very interesting concept. And I mean, if I was going to do it as a board game, I would personally have it very similar to Hero Quest in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
where it's all gridded. Or yeah, you could just do it on a free roam, and if you did it in a, let's call it like Carnival scales, what, 32 mil heroic,
I don't think they're heroic.
32 mil, either way, the 30, I think the 32 mil.
Mm-hmm.
You would probably, for that sort of thing, I'd say you could probably get away with a 2x2,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit smaller. Um, Obviously depending on your scenario, but yeah, grid that up, you know, and I mean, not have it work not too dissimilar to maybe to somehow the killer works in Don't Look Back,
Don't look back. Mm-hmm.
you know, and things like that. And yeah, and I think having those twists in it as well, I think would also keep the game quite interesting, and I mean, would you have it as a co-op game, you know, where you're all playing on the same versus the police, or would you have one
Mm-hmm.
side being like the police and the other side? I don't know. I feel that that would work better as a co-op or solo play.
Yeah, I'd go with that and kind of have like an AI set for the police. So
And hostages as well. Yeah, if you had them.
and the hostages, yeah. So is gunfire starts going if civilians are tied down, they'll either stay down because they're panicking, or they'll get up and try and run
Mm,
because they're panicking. So it's like you need to tie down the hostages and or just like keep them in like an area of influence,
yeah,
and where so like their rules will be based around that, whereas the police will be like like off like a threat, like they respond via that they by the threat.
yeah,
Maybe there's like a personal threat, so you've got like a like situational threat and then personal threat. So the coppers will target who the highest personal threat is.
yeah,
Like that'll take priority if it's like there's
what,
multiple like viable targets. They'll go
yeah,
for the one they deem as the highest threat. So if you've hit a civilian, you're the highest threat.
yeah. High priority. You're the highest priority target.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, I mean, just talking about it like that, and when you start talking about it, you know, I feel the sort of character creation, or not so much character creation, but like if you were to do it in a mini sense, you could have a miniature of maybe like that if you were to do it as a miniatures game, they'd all have like different get-ups. Like you'd buy like
Mhm.
I don't know, like jumpsuit bank robbers, suited bank robbers, and then have different weapon sprues that you could fit different weapons to them.
Mhm.
You know, like submachine guns, rifles, assault rifles, pistols, shotguns, things like that, and each weapon would have its own threat value. Like fear, because obviously you go into a bank wielding a shotgun, a sawn-off shotgun, people are going to listen.
You go in with a minigun. People
People,
are definitely going to listen, but you'll also be the biggest threat because you've walked in with a minigun.
because you've
So
got the
have like
biggest gun.
you could take like your equipment has like a detection rate. So that like
Yeah.
taking the idea from Payday 2, your gear affects your detection.
Mm.
Whereas in Payday 3 they didn't have that, like they don't have that mechanic in. It just kind of it doesn't matter. It's like I quite like the detection in Payday 2, but I don't miss it in Payday 3. If you know what I mean.
Okay.
It was nice to have, but it wasn't a mandatory thing.
Mm.
But like have a system like that on a tabletop game would be pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth jotting some ideas down. I mean, talking about this, me and Chris have said we discussed about having a TTRPG version of a heist, um, and maybe getting something like that written up over a period of time. Watch this space, um, and yeah, so my fantasy sort of game, what I would like to see is it takes a very different turn from Chris's. So as much as I do love a heist, and I do love a heist. I love a heist film. I love all the Ocean's films. I'm not sure if Baby Driver counts as a heist film, but I do really like that. It's got heisting in it.
It's a getaway driver film.
It's heist adjacent.
It's one of the crew.
Yeah. But my brain, and Chris knows this for a fact, because sometimes he'll get like these half-baked ideas every so often. I'll just sort of text him, and he's like, I don't know whether he just humours me or if he sometimes looks at that text and just think, is this guy okay? But my brain is generally always awash with fantastical ideas, be it TTRPGs, tabletop mini games. Um, but a game I would love to see, in a sort of sense, is like a battle of the bands. Very when I say battle of the bands, I mean that in the literal sense. Not It's not just bands playing music instruments like traditionally what a battle of bands is. I'm talking about, in a sense, two bands physically fighting each other.
It's like that
Um,
scene in Scott Pilgrim.
yeah, and sort of because it would sort of combine two of my great loves of life, um, which is tabletop gaming and music. I'm a musician of sorts. I haven't played in a long time, but I can play some instruments. And the way I see it working is the idea I had in my head is each member of a band would provide sort of different things. Like you'd have like your singer, your guitarist, rhythm, whatever, how many guitarists, bassist, drummer, um, and each of those sort of instruments would do certain things. Like I always envisioned that the drums would be like helping movement, keeping like momentum up,
Mm.
maybe gaining initiative because obviously drums are like the rhythm and the backbeat of a band. And then the bassist would be more like a support role, maybe like heals things. And then your guitarist and your singer are more like the more physical, the more aggressive musicians,
Mm.
causing whatever. And the way I envisioned it in my head is that you'd have a stage, you'd have your band that you would have, they'd be like miniatures, and then you would also have, like in the middle, there'd be like a battleground. And the idea would be is to get enough fans to start attacking the other stage. So the idea is you're trying to gain favour of the fans in the middle, and then that
Mhm.
tide of battle would then start shifting towards the other side. And in theory, the person who can get their, that it's again, it's still quite harebrained. I haven't figured out all the kinks yet, but it's just something that, and I don't know if Chris will remember this because it sort of flew under the radar. I got the inspiration for this sort of game idea from a video game years ago called Brutal Legend.
Yes, that was Jack Black
It was
was
Jack
in that.
Black.
Yeah.
If for any of you who are not familiar with Brutal Legend, it was a game set in a fantasy-esque area that music is an actual weapon. Like Jack Black's character used to have a guitar and it would shoot like lightning out of it and it would do damage to people at range. And you could also learn like guitar solos that would do special things. But that game also had a real time strategy element to it where you'd have this big stage and there was like souls of like fans and you'd have to build like merch stands and things like that to create new units. You had units like headbangers, which are like a melee unit. You had like
Makes sense.
you had like bassists who would like heal people, roadies, security, metal monsters, which were like a panther that breathed fire. It was just weird. An amazing game. Just flew under the radar because Modern Warfare 2 came out at the same time.
Hmm.
I mean, even if
Yeah, I was playing Modern Warfare.
even if it was directly linked to a Brutal Legend, if it's like a Brutal Legend tabletop game, which I believe could work, yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to see because that would combine two of my greatest loves in life, two of my greatest hobbies of music and tabletop gaming. And it was an interesting concept as a video game, and I would love it as a sort of physical concept to the tabletop.
Hmm.
However, it would also, I think, would work quite nicely as a TTRPG where you and a group of friends make a band of sort, where you live in a world where, yes, music is a weapon, and again, different parts of the band would do different things. Like I would say, the guitarist, it creates playing the guitar is a weapon. You'd also have like weapons. Um, you know, but there would also be like not so much a musical element, but using music as a weapon. I feel would be quite cool. Um, yeah, it's just I just kind of got reminded of it like ages ago because I saw like one of those short reels on Instagram and it was about Brutal Legend, and I was like, oh, I remember that, and then it kind of kicked
It
off.
all just came flooding back.
Yeah, and it just sort of brought it all back because there was like four factions in that game. So you had Ironhead, which is more like your classic rock metal sort of group.
There was like a Viking, like a ghost Viking crew, wasn't there?
Yeah, so you had, I think it was like the Twisted Coil, which was those guys. Drowning Pool, which was more like your emo sort of screamo stuff, and there was like Lion White's Legion, which were like your glam rockers. Like your Hairspray, your Motley Crues
Hmm.
sort of thing. And yeah, it was just such a weird take on like music, and it tapped into that really weird part of me where I like fantasy games like running around wielding an axe or a sword or something, but then it also incorporated, oh, by the way, you want to chop some people in half with an axe? That's great, but hey, you could also electrocute them with a guitar. And I was just sort of like, I'm sold. And I was hooked on that game and I played it so long. But yeah. And I just feel some sort of tabletop representation of that, whether sort of directly or indirectly, would be quite cool. I also just like the idea of if I was to paint or to have like some sort of like 28mm, 32mm parody bands. Like, I would like to see a miniatures version of the band Kiss, and then it could probably be given the name Smooch. I don't know. Just like all the bands that I love, just sort of being able to paint them in a miniature sense, sort of like almost like a how Rumbleslam does the tongue-in-cheek wrestlers. I would like something really similar, but with like metal musicians, rock, country. I mean, hell, you could even get rap. I like rap. I just like music in general. I just like the idea of music being used as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got bands called Slayer. Like
Yeah, enough said.
enough said. You know, whether or not because who was it? There's that Zombicide game. Have you seen this? Heard of this?
I've heard of Zombicide. There's
So,
like a million different
so
expansions.
Zombicide did a Iron Maiden one
Mm.
with like with Eddie the mascot in just like different forms. One when he was like from the Trooper, Aces High, things like that, and that was really really cool. But yeah, I just like the idea of just sort of like having having a battle of the bands, like just get my stage put up against your stage, big space in the middle, and we then just have to fight it out in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and just having it that way. Even if you just use the bands and not even have the fans or anything like that, just duking it out, but with music.
Yeah, I say like that scene in Scott Pilgrim where it's Sex Bob-omb versus the Katinagi twins,
Yeah,
and like they're using the sound to fight. So you've got the Katinagis with the dragons
yeah.
coming out, and then there's like the huge Yeti coming out of Sex Bob-omb, and it's just scrapping like that.
I mean, again, something like that, and I mean, if it was a tabletop role playing game like that, in the background, I would just have like the music playing. I think that would be a part of the rules that you've got to have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to do, I want to do this solo, and it does this. Okay, well, how does it go? And then you kind of got to do like the whole sort of thing, and like sort of stuff like that, and you got to make the noises,
Mm-hmm.
or just use one
You've
of
got
your.
to act it out.
Yeah, the way I envisioned this, so I envisioned it like, the lead guitarist, because they call, generally speaking, they call a guitar an axe,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the guitarist character's weapon would just be an axe that somehow got strings on it. So
Mm-hmm.
he can use the strings like as a magic thing, or just use the axe. Drummers will have like a small club in each hand,
Mm-hmm.
and then when they want to do the drum bit of it, it's like magic, and then it makes the noises why they do it, because you can't lug a drum kit around. And just things like that. And I just think it would be an interesting concept. The singer
Yeah,
would
it'd be
probably have
pretty cool.
like a flail on the end of a chain, but obviously it's like a microphone on the end of the chain. And
Mm-hmm.
and I just think that's an interesting concept, and I might start writing some notes down about it. But either way, something like that, and I feel there's a niche, not so much a
When you're
niche.
playing the game, you get bonus points if you're wearing ridiculously tight leather pants,
Mm.
and even more bonus points if your t-shirts had the sleeves like torn off
Or leopard print.
or leopard print.
And if you've got a headband and you've used way too much hairspray.
If you're wearing like a cat suit, you get like as in like the clothing, not just a cat suit. Like if you're wearing like some glam rock cat suit, then you get some bonus points.
But yeah, it's because I know, obviously, again, D&D, they have a character of the bard,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, he can do the vicious mockery, he can do this, he can do that, but it's not pinned around music as a whole, and I think it's almost like, oh, would it be just, oh, it's just everyone a bard? And it's like,
Yeah, in D&D, it's more just like that's just giving you access to these spells now, rather than it's like an actual concept of using musical ability of your character.
yes, I think with my idea for that, I think just sort of takes that to sort of like the next step when it breaks down to like what instrument your character's using.
Mm-hmm.
Um, almost they would also almost be like barbarians if you want to call them like that.
Yeah,
It's
just
like
call it barbarian.
that's not. Do you know what? That's not a bad idea, Chris. Barbarians. So yeah, you pick an instrument. I mean, hell, you could even have country musicians. You know, like oh, I've got a fiddle.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's of course obviously to use that it's a bow. It's that bit that goes across. It's a bow.
Yeah,
That now becomes a ranged weapon. Firing arrows from the violin, like magical
that's a good
arrows.
idea.
I've written this down now. But you know, my theory is if you can think, or if you can take a music style that you like, and then it will somehow fit in. I like the idea it will somehow fit into my game. Like, oh, okay, so what instrument do you know what music do you like? Oh, I really like classical music. Cool, you've got loads of musical instruments to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, I really like the clarinet. Okay, well this clarinet, what is it? It's a woodwind instrument. That sounds to
Makes you
me,
shit yourself.
now that sort of instrument would look like it could manipulate the air around people. It could start becoming like
Mm-hmm.
when you want to use it that way, and things like that. And it's
Using is it a theremin? Where it's like
oh
it
the
uses like the air.
noise, yeah,
Yeah, is it like using like the air, like density or whatever it is around it? So like
yeah,
with that, you're using kind of like kinetic force
yeah, exactly. And
to
that would
do
be
it,
the idea.
because it's a
So
very hand movement thing.
yeah, so the idea of it in my head, and again, I pity the therapist whoever has to take a look in there. Um, the idea in my head would be is right. The instruments will fit into like certain aspects of it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it would do certain things like oh I'm going to do that. Like even from a guitarist point of view, like you got take like some Eddie Van Halen, he would make the guitar scream, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that yet then you've got from the other side of that, you've got the likes of you know bloody fucking what's his name, Eric Clapton, who would make it sing, and it would be a very different style of playing, and therefore, depending on a genre base, it would then depend on what that would do. And I just think that that's quite an interesting concept. Of it's again
Mm-hmm.
taking that idea of brutal legend that like instruments can do damage or do this, because in brutal legend, bassists were like healers, so the bass would heal people. So your bassist would be
Mm-hmm.
like a support character. Your drummers will be very fast moving, like doing a lot of quick movements, more
Mm-hmm.
like Death of a Thousand Cuts sort of thing. Be very melee based, and just things like that. And I like the idea of that. And it's just sort of like, yeah, we will physically attack you, but at the same time, we will use, they'll also have the power to move you. And if no one that's a good Jack Black little move there. If you've not heard, if
So
you've
you
not
say it's you say it's someone's going to use mind bullets
if that's telekinesis, Christopher. But what about the power to move
to move
you?
you.
And I just think that would be funny, and I think it's taking that level of like the bards in D&D to the next level, being very specific,
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of taking that aspect of it out of D&D, but making it its whole thing. you're still going on quests, but you're in like a land where music is a very powerful force.
Hmm.
You know, it's a magic in its own right. Wherever this fantasy setting is, I'll think of something cool. But
Well, that's a pretty cool idea.
yeah, and I just think it'd be an interesting thing. And again, there's a lot of people out there, that are like me, love music, heavy metal, and painting minis and being a nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a market for it. Um, I think even people who play D&D, who plays bards, going, "Oh, do you know what? I like being a bard, but I just wish I could cut someone's skull open." Well, now you can with bard being a barbarian. But yeah, there's lots of things. Again, harebrained ideas, and I mean, for those of you listening out there, I don't. I'll say this actually. Don't be afraid to just jot some ideas down. Talk about it with a fellow nerd. Maybe talk about it with someone who isn't a nerd. I mean, granted, depending, you got read the room on that one. But as again, like I bounce ideas off Chris bounces ideas off me, because it's good to get an idea out, and then sometimes even when you verbalise it, it then kind of gives it. Well, actually, that is quite a good idea because I verbalised it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to just write something down because you never know. You could have tapped onto something there that a lot of people might not have ever thought of. You know, penicillin was invented by accident. You know, J.K. Rowling had an idea of making a wizard film, and look at her. She's a lot of controversy around that, but she made a multi-million selling books on about a wizard boy. Which, by the way, I will say this confidently, and it's a very bold statement. Harry Potter's just Star Wars with sucky lightsabers. I'm saying it. Quick rundown, right? I know this is a little bit off topic, but I've made my point and I'll say it. I'll get my soapbox out. A young orphan boy whose parents were killed by a madman gets taken in by his aunt and his uncle who don't understand the magical force that he's got until he meets an older man who knows about this magical force and teaches him about it. That's Star Wars and Harry Potter.
And everything ever, because
Yep,
it's a common trope.
exactly. But anyway, don't be afraid to just jot some ideas down because I said you might have tapped onto something. Even D&D, at one point in its infancy, the guy who created it probably said to his mate, "Here, I've got an idea for a game. We kill dragons set in a dungeon. Fair enough. We play as like elves and orcs and stuff, and then we play it. Oh, what, like Warhammer? No, 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 no. Here's the best bit. No miniatures. It's all in our heads. It's all on paper.
There was no Warhammer at that point.
Well, there was no Warhammer, so there you go. So he's like, nah, mate, it's all up here. And then we'll roll these funky dice that I've made. And that's it. All things have come, all games that exist came because someone took a chance on it, believed in their product, and then here we are. Now you've got Games Workshop, Wizards of the Coast, Mantic Games, all these big companies because someone took a chance on something that didn't exist yet. And you might have something in your head tucked away. You keep thinking, oh, that'd be a good idea. Just do it, right? Worst that can happen is you can put your art out there, nothing comes of it. Best case scenario, you'd never know, you could have tapped on a multi-million idea. Because we nerds believe Kickstarter is just filled with nerds who have seen something and they go, finally, someone's done it.
Mm.
You know? So, with that in mind, from the imaginary to the very real, we're going to head to new and shiny.
New and shiny.
New and shiny. I'm going to start us off, Chris, if you don't mind. Funnily
Yeah,
enough,
right.
while we're talking about D&D and Wizards of the Coast, again, I was going to mention this in our last episode, but it's already come out now. So it's the new player's handbook for D&D has come out. Came out on the 17th of September. That's the updated player book with more subclasses, more things than that. A couple of little rule changes. Nothing too major.
Yeah, I think they've changed the the entire character creation thing, where it's no longer like race, class, subclass kind of thing. It's like they've brought in other ways of basically generating your class.
Yeah.
Sounds very weird.
I mean, I haven't read it yet, but it is. I'll probably wait till someone I know gets it and have a quick flip through. But it still works with fifth edition.
Yeah, I'll probably not pick up the new rule book, to be honest with you.
Oh no, it's just a player's handbook. I mean, I've got the old
Yeah.
one. Also, Carnival have been teasing a new miniature, which looks very nice for TT Combat Carnival. Mentions of Halloween, so one would suspect that it's probably a Strigoi. She's holding a heart, also another good indication that could be a Strigoi.
Yeah, that kind of points you in the direction of vampires.
She does also, her dress stance does look very Romani, so worth noting. And finally, on the TT Combat front, again, I was going to mention this last week, is the Drop Fleet Commander 2.0 is on pre-order at the minute for the 18th of October. It features the UCM and the Bioficers race, which is a new faction in Drop Fleet Commander.
Yeah, their stuff looks cool. I picked up the Anomaly because it's one of the event exclusives. I picked that up. Really nice looking ships.
So this new 2-player starter set is, I think it's retailing for, I want to say £64. Don't know why £64 ringing a bell. But it's all grey plastic sprues. So this is the first 2-player starter set that TT Combat have brought out with their new line of grey plastic sprues.
£80 Drop Fleet Commander 2-player starter set,
which is still not bad. So yes, it's the first 2-player starter set that TT Combat are doing with their new grey plastic lines. Very interested to see that.
9 plastic UCM ships, 15 plastic Bioficers ships, the rulebook, 24 bases, 10 dice, space station sheet, debris sheets, token sheets, and fast play.
All very good stuff. I mean, looking at it, that's what might get me the hooks in properly with Drop Fleet. I do have a couple models. I picked up some event exclusives of a couple of UCM ships at the expo.
Those UCM ships look awesome. I still think the Bioficers are like all my favourite ones, but those UCM ones, they just got that like utilitarian military
Halo
look.
vibe.
And some of the bigger ships, they just look like guns, like the Sulaco in Aliens. It just looks like a big gun. And these have that same sort of like design philosophy, it looks like.
So I might try and next time I might try and get like a demo game when I next see someone who plays it. Give that a crack. But yeah, that's my new and shiny. And what's piqued your interest over the last couple of weeks?
One of our listeners, Jack Cook, he's one of the lads I've been playing D&D with, because after the back of last episode, he invited me to join their group. And he pointed me at the Prismacast terrain from Archon Studio. Dungeon scenery on sprue, which is already coloured.
Oh, that's nice.
It's like UV painting on it when it's printed.
Oh, I see.
And like they've had the original hand painted designs scanned, and then as it prints the ones you'll get, it prints the color onto them as well.
That's clever.
And yeah, like you just put it all together, create like little modular dungeons and stuff.
That sounds pretty
Looks
cool.
pretty cool.
Does sound very cool. So
Another,
thanks, Jack.
yeah, cheers, Jack. Another one that it's like a similar vein to that, but it's kind of focused more for like 40k and Age of Sigmar.
Okay.
It's a future-proof modular terrain from the Snot Goblin. You can do late pledges through Kickstarter at the moment. They advertise it as Lego, but for scenery.
Okay.
This is like a heavily modular scenery, and you can like recreate the 40k and Age of Sigmar like GT setups. So like very simple to like put together and take apart, and it all like condenses down into like a really useful box.
That's
Like
handy.
for like you can have like a full table broken down into that, and yeah, different themes, like different um like prints on the outside of it and stuff like that. And yeah, like I say, the kind of set it for 40k or Age of Sigmar, depending on which sets you get, and they look really cool and nice, strong pigments apparently.
I mean, it's good the fact that it condenses down, because obviously that's a big thing for anyone who's got scenery. I mean, I myself, and between me and Dad, especially with Carnival scenery or Streets of Venice scenery from TT Combat, as it's more officially known, we have. Trying to work it out now. I reckon we have enough scenery to cover I'd say, an 8x8 table.
Oof.
Yeah, we basically could create a quarter of Venice to scale. You know, we've got the kits like the Palazzo. No, no, not the Palazzo. So we've got the San Geremino Tower. We've got the Arsenale. We've got that. You know, the palace. You know, the sort of Palazzo, sort of in Venice, where they got that big with all the. It's hard to explain. I don't know what the kit's called. I think it's not being done anymore. But we obviously, when we got into that with the Venetian Quarter.
Is it like the kind of ones where like right in the center of Venice, like where the like where like the big clock tower and stuff is, that big square?
Yeah,
That sort of
with the other stuff that goes
place.
surrounds it,
Yeah,
because that came out as a kit, so we got that.
the Palazzo Emilia.
That's the Palazzo Emilia. Yeah, that's what I was on about. I was right with Palazzo. Obviously, then we've got the Sunken Quarter. We've got a load of the ships, the galleons. You know, so we've got enough to comfortably cover an 8x8 table.
Not bad.
So
it takes up a lot of space for storage.
We have got a smart storage solution, but the point is, yes, the fact that it doesn't collapse down into each other is always a struggle. So the fact if this thing does collapse into each other and stores within itself, that's really handy. And from a space saving point of view, that sounds amazing. But yeah, I'll have to look at that. But yeah.
Keeping it with the TT Combat from that, the new Rumbleslam releases will be hitting retail. I got the email this morning saying that it's been sent out. So you've got Stubby the Slayer, one of the new superstars, for Kaiser's Palace. I thought this was all for
I
the
did.
keep, but
Yeah.
not.
I thought she was going to be the keep, but no.
I suppose if you've got someone who's going after vampires, you don't want them to be in the same casino as the vampires.
Very true.
So
It's
kind
like,
of makes sense.
it's like putting Lumberjack in the Forest Soul.
Yeah. Although I'm surprised, Stubby the Slayer doesn't have a rule for giving her like a bonus against vampires, kind of like how Lumberjack gets one against Forest Soul stuff. I'm
Maybe.
surprised she hasn't got one. Got Night of Darkness. He's
I'm
on the
so
way.
looking forward to.
Ace of Hearts, which is a very like chiseled Squidward look.
A very flamboyant goblin.
Uh,
Is he a goblin?
looks really
Is he
cool.
a hobgoblin?
Hobgoblin.
A very flamboyant
Looks
hobgoblin.
looks really cool.
Does look very cool.
And then the Stable of Chivalry, which
Yep.
will also have some models which will double up as crowd for Half Tilt and TT Combat when their team's not getting used.
Now, I'll be honest with you, with those guys, I was a little bit disappointed with the Centaur.
Hmm?
I feel they could have done a little bit more with it. Because obviously Calator was the first instance we've had of a Centaur
Mm-hmm.
for Carnival, and since has been the only Centaur up until now. I just feel that I would have liked to have seen a little bit of plate armor on it. That's just me. But otherwise,
I mean, he's got plate armor like around his waist, like some plates.
I just would have liked, because like you can get like armor for horses. I would have liked to have seen some of that, but that's just me. Otherwise, the posing's very
You
nice.
can buy that from Bethesda extra.
But I do like the posing that they've done. Chris knows it. I make a very fine point of saying this. I can't stand miniatures that are running or are running on one leg. I just don't like it, especially when you work with resin, because obviously it's quite a brittle bond. I tend to.
That's a point. There isn't a running on 1 foot model in this team.
Yeah, and I feel that
I'm
might
pretty
be.
sure every team has someone on 1 foot.
I just don't really like it because I find, because again, when you work with resin, it's not so bad in grey plastic because obviously it's a lot stronger bond. But when I'm working with metal or resin, I don't like one-legged things, just because.
Yeah, you want to have plenty points of contact.
Yeah, so a lot of the time when I do have to do models that have only got like 1 foot on the base, I'll sort of like put something else on the base next to their foot to sort of give it something to almost to lean on. I'll give you a prime example of this. Half tilt, the craggy bottom goats. A lot of the goats are on like their hind legs.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, dramatic. I'm not saying that. It's a personal gripe. Some people like it because they think it looks quite dramatic. For me, it's a personal gripe. Especially because when sometimes I've had it once, or I've had it more than once, or I've been dry brushing a model like that, and then it just comes off the base, and I'm like, So I've got my leader of my craggy bottom goats. As you can see, I've put a rock under one of his feet, just to give it that third frontal stable point. So there's now no flex in it. But yeah, other than because Calator only had 2 points of contact on him. I believe it was only 2 points of contact, wasn't it?
I think he has 3.
Yeah, it might be. So it's not out of a point of view where I think it looks bad. I love how they look. It's just from a assembly point of view, I don't like it. So I am glad that a lot of these miniatures are all on 2 feet. Just again, personal gripe. You could like your different things. It's just a personal gripe for me. Other than that, though, the whole team does look really nice. I'm not saying the Centaur didn't look nice. I'm just wish there was a bit more plate armor. And I hope he has the same rule as Calator about getting up on the turnbuckles.
He does.
That's
I looked at the picture of the card. I think Calator looks a lot better than this new one. There's just a bit more character about like his face and kind of like the pose itself on Calator, where he's like pulling back for a punch.
Yeah,
the
Calator model.
This new one is there flexing.
Yeah, but that's the keep, isn't it? You know, it's that one sort of.
I'm not a massive fan of the keep. I love the vampires. The knights.
I mean, it is awkward, Chris, when you consider the fact that, like, you know, Sir Flex and Sir Poser were modelled after us.
Yeah. Oh, they're great. I love them.
You know, they did tell us to stop sending them pictures.
And I will not.
And we won't.
Not stop.
We won't. We won't stop sending them pictures. What is more concerning is
not until they create the nude knight.
Yeah, but
just wearing the helmet.
Just wearing the helmet. You can keep your hat on.
Exactly.
Do you know what? It'd be funny if they did make a model of
a full Monday,
a full knight, right? But like the genitalia are like but pixelated. It's got like a pixel, just a pixelated over the genital area, but they've modelled on the pixelation. That'd be quite funny. But I don't mind the keep. I appreciate what they've done with the keep. I know that's kind of their, not to sound like a social warrior, because I just believe 100% of people should feel 100% awesome 100% of the time. And if that means that you want to be a man who identifies as a woman, who identifies as a man, whatever makes you feel 100% awesome, I'm all for. And that's kind of what the keep sort of faction was about. It's a very LBGTQ plus faction. A lot of inclusion, a lot of sort of that sort of thing. Because obviously you've got Sonia Proudbeard, one of that who's obviously a transgendered dwarf. I think that's the way around that one goes.
She just didn't shave her beard off. She wanted to keep her beard.
And it's great that they're doing that. I mean, one of the Carnival characters is a crossdresser. Is one of the it's a House of Virtue model.
Yeah, one of the prostitutes.
Harlots.
Same difference.
Big difference. But it's just I do enjoy the faction. I do believe there's quite a lot of. But then again, it touches on that my love of the fantasy. Knights in shining armor. And again, I do like the vampires that are in there.
I love the vampires.
I mean, the Man Bat is also one of my favourite Weight 3 characters at the minute. And I also really enjoy the tag team that they've got with the King and Queen of Hearts.
Yeah, they've got a really cool mechanic.
I do love how they work. And again, but yeah, I mean, I've never been disappointed by a model by TT Combat. Saying that, the old style Morgrauer they did, slightly like, I'm not going to get it, but I can appreciate what's gone into it.
So the Vesperon remake.
But I was very looking forward to the Night of Darkness. I'm a big Monty Python fan, so that's why that tickled that bone. And honestly, I just can't wait to see where they keep. And again, we say this every so often, but they are just getting better. So I feel like there's been a lot more free reign. on their design. But just can't wait to see where it goes. I mean, I feel like we need to have some disgusting speculation, but there's not really anything out there to speculate.
Yeah, the I think the majority of the teasers have been around this wave of releases, isn't it?
Hmm.
Although there is still a couple of stuff that hasn't cropped up yet.
No.
Little ones that are hidden in the backgrounds of stuff.
Yes, like the Lady Drusilla, the sort of Resident Evil adage. Can't wait for that model to come out. That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There
was another one in the background where they had like the elven terrain that TT Combat does?
Oh, the Fantasy Realms stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be some.
There's one hidden in the back somewhere. You could just see them.
Oh, yeah.
Poking out.
I mean, I'm pretty confident.
I don't think they've had any other like real teasers of like what they are.
Or I suppose me saying about what the figure they've been teasing on the TT Combat about Carnival, saying that that could be Romani, I suppose could be considered speculation, but I wouldn't necessarily call that disgusting speculation. So apologies, folks. There's no disgusting speculation, I'm afraid. Nothing to disgustingly speculate.
No.
I mean, I'll make the noise.
I'm just gonna say, Catfolk or Riot, Bulls in your courts, TT Combat.
Thanks for joining us on the Tippy Cast, and if you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow us.
And if you listen to us on YouTube, why not drop us a like and subscribe? And weigh in with your thoughts on what we've mentioned, missed, or something for us to look at for the next episode in the comments below.
And it's a goodbye from him.
And it's a goodbye from me.